Hello Internet, this is N2O. I am here with a video that is not just me talking to myself in a room alone doing an MTGO league. Instead, I'm going to be doing a review video with FatesealMTG from FatesealMTG. He is a YouTube streamer. He streams like 3 times a week right now. One of those is going to be a review stream where he goes over stuff kind of like how I'm going over it here. I'm chopping it up and still doing editing, but his is going to be live format, so obviously it's going to be uncut. I think that the type of content that he does over there is very helpful for new players and even experienced players like myself. It's good to see other people playing a deck because it's hard to get better when you're in your own head playing a deck by yourself for enough time, even if you do a lot of self-analysis. Sometimes it's really useful just to be able to talk to somebody else about the deck and see if you're doing something wrong. So I find his content extremely helpful. Do check him out. There will be a card up above and a description link down below for the channel. And normally he hangs out in the Discord voice channels while he does his streams. So if you have questions live, then you can ask him live in voice, as well as in the YouTube chat. The games themselves are pretty long, but I felt like they were intricate and had some good decision making. Let's dive into it. Hello, Internet. It is N2O. Today I am not by myself. I have another person that is, I was going to say in the room. You're not in the room. You're far away. You're somewhere else. No, you're somewhere else.
I'm far away.
Okay. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
No, but I'm going to do it anyway. My name is Krex. I run the FatesealMTG YouTube channel. I started playing the deck 10 years ago. Been messing around with this a long time, and grateful to be hosted on N2O's video here. It's really nice being able to collaborate with knowledgeable people in the community.
Hooray! Friends. Friends are good.
Friends.
Yeah, this video is going to be a little bit different. Normally I just do league videos, but this time we're going to go through a couple of games, just do a quick analysis. To start with, we're going to go over the deck list that I used so that we're on the same page on what resources I have available in these games. The mission statements I had for this deck, or at least the variables I wanted to test, we're going to be running Fatal Pushes right here. I wanted to test that in conjunction with Mishra's Bauble right here. My thoughts are that the meta is super aggressive right now, and there's a lot of creatures running around that if you make your opponent stumble on their turn 1 and 2, then it slows them down a lot more than if you just pray for bridge on turn 3. Yeah, is there anything else in this deck list that you see that's particularly spicy, at least in the main board? We can go over the sideboard in a moment.
The Candy Trail looks like it's a decent inclusion, and it makes a lot of sense in this situation. It allows you to dig for non-artifact spells off of your Urza's Saga. It is yet another thing that can sacrifice to revolt your Fatal Push, and it just gains you life when you really need it in a pinch, which, again, in this meta, you just hit so fast. You need to gain that life, especially against those energy decks.
Yeah, the reason it's in the deck is I've had a couple of times where I've tried to tutor off of Urza Saga, and I've been in a position where I just needed a bridge. I didn't need anything else. And I could just tutor an extra mill rock to try and dig, but the Candy Trail gives you a little bit more immediate card advantage over the next 1 or 2 turns where you can evaluate. You're like, I'm going to die in the next 2 turns. So, Candy Trail just digs further. That was my thought.
Candy Trail does it by itself as well. So if you, heaven forbid, you don't have a lantern in play, Candy Trail will just look for you.
Yeah, exactly. So it seemed like some good raw card advantage that's tutorable off Saga, and like your next best thing that you can tutor is a Mishra's Bauble, which is not good. So.
The Toxic Deluge in the main board is an interesting inclusion. I don't know how I feel about it because I haven't seen it in action before.
The Toxic Deluge is a bit of a holdover from the previous video that I made. I didn't really get to test it too much because it was a one-of, but my thought is if Toxic Deluge is in your hand and it's not relevant, then your Ensnaring Bridge, you could probably afford to have an extra 1 or 2 dead cards in hand. Or that you might be able to afford an extra dead draw, something like that. But having an extra bridge style, slow them down type effect seems important.
Just taking a look at your sideboard as well. We've got quite a few things in here, actually. Your sideboard seems like it's quite a bit more focused than the lists that I've been working on lately. You've got your board wipes, you've got your Terra Sunders, which are a 3 of, Collective Brutality, which is also a 3 of, you've got the double Extirpate. Actually, Now that I'm looking at the list, extirpate in the side, no surgicals anywhere to be found. That's actually a bit of a departure from where most of the community is going at the moment.
I was running a lot of surgicals in the main board. I did cut them to make room for the Mishra's Baubles this time around. I still like surgical, but the purpose of extirpate, control is a tough matchup, and there's been a lot of talk from like Mickey or Thinker about using extirpate on Flage in the One Ring control matchups to really mess with your opponent's threat density, which prevents them from winning the game nearly as quickly, or it makes it a lot easier to control the top card of their library because they need some way to win the game through like some number of subtleties and solitudes, and they don't run a lot of those. So extirpate helps solve the problem because they're very reliant on Flage, and then you can cut through their counter magic that way. So if I'm not running, or I was running 2 surgicals and 2 extirpates, like 2 main surgicals, 2 extirpates side, it felt like too much. Like there were a lot of times I just got stuck with the surgical in hand, and I'm like, there's nothing useful in the graveyard yet to extract from their deck because I didn't draw a Thoughtseize effect right away.
Yeah, and now you just have this surgical that's just sitting around in your hand, not really doing anything when it could have been a different card that would actually accomplish something in this particular situation.
Yeah, so that's why the extirpates are there instead. I figured I'd test them out. Like I'm still not sure if it's good or bad, but I mean, I need something against the control matchup anyways, and I don't really have anything better other than additional discard effects. So this seemed like an interesting idea that I wanted to try out.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm looking forward to seeing how this list fares in these matches.
Match 1, game 1. I start off on the play, which is nice. Oh, whoops.
Yeah, don't even bother with the first hand. I looked at it; there wasn't a single land.
Yeah, they're okay. So that one was a no-lander. Opponent has revealed Giganta as well. That's worth noting. So
Okay,
high likelihood that they're on energy.
Or Ruby Storm.
Yes, they could be on Storm as well. It's not guaranteed they're on energy. So this 6 card, what do you think of it?
I think that this has a nice little progression. It's got turn 1, Blooming Marsh into Candy Trail. Turn 2, Urza Saga into Suspend Profane Tutor. And then turn 3, Toxic Deluge. And turn 4, your Profane Tutor comes off Suspend, finds an Ensnaring Bridge. And at the same time, your Saga will pop and find you a Lantern. You'll have several draws in the meantime, and especially with the consistency from the Candy Trail, I think it's an okay keep. It is likely much better than any Mold of 5 that you'll find.
Yeah, it's interesting because it has a lot of pieces that dig for
A
stuff.
lot of pieces.
There's a surprising amount of resiliency, even though there's no definitive Lantern combo pieces, except for maybe, I guess you define the Saga as that. But I imagine that I either bought him a land or a bauble.
In this particular situation, I would bottom the bauble. You don't really have any way to take advantage of it. And Candy Trail is kind of like a better bauble anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure which we haven't progressed, so I'm not sure which, but I really would want to keep the 3 land guarantee because that Toxic Deluge on turn 3 is going to be incredibly important.
That makes sense. We lose the bauble. The progression that you've listed out, turn 1 Candy Trail, turn 2 Saga Tutor, turn 3 Hold Up Deluge, is going to be pretty much exactly what we're doing. These are the scries off Candy Trail.
Stirrings and Gardens. You keep the Ancient Stirrings.
I believe the Stirrings is on top, yeah.
Oh, Blood Crypt. It's Mardu energy.
Yes.
It's Mardu energy.
Yep. So I wasn't entirely sure. I have seen some Rakdos lists before that like run the old Rakdos scam package floating around before. I haven't seen many of them, so I wasn't sure. Turn 1 Blood Crypt is kind of weird for Mardu to lead on. So I was considering maybe it was going to be like some Ragavan style deck, but or like with Croxes and stuff. But either way, they snagged the Profane Tutor away, which is a little unfortunate, but
I think snagging the Profane Tutor is fine because you do have the Stirrings here that you can now convert into a turn 2 play. Or you could just pop the Candy Trail.
We'll see. Yeah, so
yeah,
I think
a Stirring.
Stirrings first makes sense. I suppose I could play the Saga out like 99% of the time. I think I'm playing the Saga out anyways. It's a lot of good stuff. It's no bridge, but I think in this situation, the Shredder isn't going to do anything by itself. So it's probably going to be a Lantern or a Pithing Needle.
Yep. I think that they got a 6-card hand.
Mm-hmm.
I might grab the Lantern here and just expect the Saga to grab a Pithing Needle. I just can't really shake the feeling that we're already behind, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems a little concerning. I think the Lantern's going to be nice too, though, because I can at least choose a player to shuffle once, and maybe I get a
Right.
redraw that way. And if I have nothing else going on, then I can pop the Candy Trail as well, which...
That's true.
Yeah, so I do grab the Lantern. I could see maybe an argument for a Pithing Needle, but because I don't know what their hand is, it's kind of hard to tell if Needle's going to be useful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And that Saga can go grab a Pithing Needle if you really needed to.
Yeah, and if they don't have anything else going on, then I can just grab a Shredder or something. And I have the Deluge to buy me some time as well. Okay, they had a Bowmasters on top. They shuffled that away, though. And they run out of Johnny on turn 2.
Is this worth a Toxic Deluge on its own?
They drew a Galvanic Discharge on their turn. So they're able to flip their Ajani for 1 mana next turn. That's my big concern. Now, at the same time, though, they don't have any red permanents. Like, Ajani's ultimate is concerning, just because it, like, forces me to only keep 1 artifact. That's a problem. But the really scary thing to me on Ajani, at least early mid game, is the 0. Because if they control a red permanent, then they just bonk you for a ton of damage. Mardu seems to have a harder time getting red permanents on the table, though. So I'm a little bit less concerned about that in the short to medium term, but on the moment that they start sticking red permanents, that becomes a problem. So I'm not sure what I do here.
There's a good argument to go either way, I think. You could Toxic Deluge now, and then what are you drawing next turn? You're drawing a land.
Yeah, it's a fetch
that would
land.
give you the opportunity to the turn after this create a dude and play out your Pixis, and that would give you quite a bit of digging power to find an ensnaring bridge.
Oh, you know what as well? So this is Johnny on the table. They can flip it over next turn, but they can't ultimate next turn. They have to spend a turn plussing. So the Saga can grab a Needle to shut off the Ajani. However, at the same time, this Deluge is probably not going to be much more useful in the future. I don't really know. So there's a chance I hold on to this. There's a chance that maybe you just spend it now and say, I have Candy Trail, I have Pixis. I can even potentially grab a second Mill Rock and I could spin into a bridge pretty quickly. I'm not really sure what the answer is. I think I'm leaning on just firing off the Deluge right away now.
Yeah, I think that's probably best.
Oh, yep.
And I think that's what you're doing right here. Yeah,
that is what I'm doing.
That's the most responsible play, I believe. It doesn't feel good, but you really just can't afford to have that Ajani flip.
Yeah, they still have 5 cards in hand, so like you said, it feels bad. But I think you're taking out their entire board state on turn 2 on a deck that needs to go fast in order to win this game. I think it's worth it. Although it does mean that I'm just kind of hoping for a bridge now. I can't do anything else in the meanwhile.
Well, now that... Oh, well. Well, if you had known that there was a second Ajani in hand, perhaps popping Saga for a Needle would have been in order. But there was no way to know that.
So on the plus side, they played an Elegant Parlor. So they can't flip this Ajani right away. They have to spend a turn, pass, so they're still going slower.
You can still grab a Pithing Needle off this Urza Saga if you want to, and it'll still be good.
Yeah, and I can play the Pixis in the same turn as making a Construct token, so I can slow them down on board as well. So this is looking pretty well, as long as I get a bridge.
Yeah, you'll need a bridge soon-ish, eventually-ish, but you'll be okay for now.
Yeah, I should be good for now. All right, it is the Needle. That makes sense. Because I don't have any way to interact with the Johnny right now. The good thing about Boros and Mardu Energy right now is that they don't have a lot of ways to direct with or deal with bridge directly. They have ways to get around it with things like Goblin Bombardment, or if you let Up Nixilis run around for long enough, then they can do nonsense with that. But for the most part, like, they're running like 2 static prisons or 3 static prisons maximum. And that's all they have to interact with you. Racing for a bridge seems like the safest bet to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, so it really does beg the question of what they have in their hand if they've been slow rolling so much.
Yeah.
So, but I think that given that they have been slow rolling so much, I think that we can make some educated guesses. So your construct's going to be double Galv Blasted, discharged right here. And they still have a Orcish Bowmasters in hand, correct?
They shuffled the Bowmasters away to fetch. So they might have one, but we don't know. Yeah.
Okay. And they didn't play a land. Okay, but they have the Ocelot Pride. It's entirely possible that they've had that Ocelot Pride in hand this whole time, and they just chose not to play it on turn 1 in favor of firing off Thoughtseize.
Yes, and then they did see the deluge as well. So they knew that I needed to fire off the deluge before they commit the go wide card.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you kind of are priced into exiling here, right?
I think so, because I'm looking for bridge. It's gonna suck to try and combat the flage, but I have cookbook as well. So like the cage isn't necessary to winning this game. So yeah, Pixis makes sense.
And this shredder does actually give you another look past.
Right.
Yeah. You could play the shredder here, pop the candy trail, draw the bauble, and that would give you 5 looks at bridge.
Yeah, I should be able to dig pretty far at this point. So I think I was in a good place to draw the shredder. I think I see more cards that way over the next couple of turns.
You don't need to slam bridge right this second.
I don't want to draw the bubble.
Yeah, I do think that it was correct to pop the candy trail at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much that matters.
I think that's relevant.
Yeah.
I think I'm assuming that I need to mill this, but I don't because it replaces itself immediately or like by the next turn cycle, which I'm banking on waiting for anyways.
Right.
So yeah, I should draw that bauble. That's correct. So opponent's gonna swing in with the team. That makes sense. Nothing controversial there. They have an Amped Raptor.
Amped Raptor makes sense in this context. Let's just hope that they don't have anything nasty.
Yeah, it's so nice when you see the top cards like something they can hit off the Raptor, because then you can actually decide, you know, do I let them keep that? But when it's a land on top, I'm not gonna go dig.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, and they find a Graveyard Trespasser,
which they can cast.
Yes, they can.
And that will what? Makes you lose a life?
Yeah. So it ETB you exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature, then they drain you for 1.
Okay, well that's not really that big of a deal.
No, and it's a 3/3, so it's pretty easy to lock out with bridge. So it doesn't change what I'm looking for over the course of this game, I don't think. It is a 3/3, like without a bridge, that's still scary, but I'm not so concerned about that.
I think that if you can find a bridge in this turn cycle, then you'll be looking really good. I think if you have to wait until next turn cycle, then it will be significantly more difficult for you, but it might still be possible. But I think that you need to find one within either this turn or the next turn. I don't think you'll survive another turn.
Yeah. So in this case, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using Pixis. I think I missed the boat with this Mishra's Bauble. I have to go and find something this turn.
I agree. It's got to happen right now.
Plus that Flage is scary.
Or next turn. Yeah, the Flage is scary. Pixis exiling, just so incredibly relevant.
From this point on, I'll go 1 more turn cycle, but I think we've achieved lock at this point. Oh yeah, so opponent finds a Goblin Bombardment.
You say no.
Yeah, they also surveilled a Flage into the graveyard, but 1 Flage is fine.
1 Flage is...
There's another Flage.
1 Flage is fine. Oh wait, no, you have a Needle on the Ajani. Okay. What if you didn't Needle Ajani there, what the opponent could have done is brought Flage back, killed the cat token, and that could flip Ajani, and then Ajani could 0 or plus even. But you're okay. You're okay. This game's basically done.
So, I said that. I forgot. So they went Goblin Bombardment. I made them mill the Goblin Bombardment. They hit a Flage. I had to Pixis away I chose to Pixis away their Flage.
See, I might not have Pixised away the Flage at that point. In order for Flage to be recurred like that, they still need to pay the escape cost of exiling 5 cards from their graveyard. They have 9 in there right now. I presume it would be relatively easy for them to get up to escaping Flage twice, in which case you would fall to 7. But after that, if you are using your Pixis instead of your Shredders, then you can make it such that they just don't get the cards in their graveyard. They just go to exile, and they don't really have anything that they can exile to Flage.
They have we can analyze this a little bit. So there's 9 cards in their graveyard right now, including the Flage itself. So they need 5 other cards? Yeah, they need 5 other cards. So Flage right now can escape once.
Right.
They only need 2 more cards to escape a second time. Counting the Flage that they would have drawn, that's another 3 damage. So that's 3 Flage triggers. That puts me at 4.
Right.
That means that they only need to find, what did I say, 2 more cards to get to 11? So 2, they need 7 more cards in the graveyard to get there. Every fetch land counts as a card in the graveyard. They probably run a third. Oh no, they probably don't run the Shadowy Backstreet Surveil land.
I think they do run the Shadowy Backstreet.
So there's probably another Surveil land. So that's their first fetch counts as 2 cards of the graveyard if they want it to be. And if they hit anything relevant that I need to double mill, then that also sticks extra cards in the graveyard as well.
That's true. So you are kind of in a bind there, aren't you?
To me, it seems risky to just hand them a Flage when I can make sure that, like, if I untap next turn and they don't have anything going on, then I should have a good lock going. It just seems like they've hit like 3 relevant cards in a row, which does happen sometimes. It's infrequent, but that means that there's Static Prison on top right now.
And that is a game-ending card immediately.
Yes, so that means that the Lantern is going to get popped here, which makes this game more complicated.
Yeah.
So never mind. I said the game was basically over. It is not. There's more time. There's more time for us.
So here they go. They're going to escape their Flage here.
Correct.
They will only be able to do it one time. Do you draw the Shredder on top of your deck, or do you exile with Pixis or mill it with Shredder and try to find whatever is underneath of it?
I think I should bin the Shredder.
I think you should bin the Shredder as well.
I think I forgot that was there. I think I lost object permanence.
I lost a game earlier, partially because of that. I was still really, really far behind, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But, take your percentage points where you can get them.
Yeah, that still matters. Yeah, so I think using Shredder on myself or Pixis, either one would have been fine. Like, we're working with unknown information here, so it doesn't really matter what I use. But yeah. Although, I suppose self-milling's a little bit better because I am approaching 5 mana. If I need to buy back the Lantern, then I can do that in the future. I play the Shredder because that's all I have to do.
And now you just need to hope that you top deck a land or a Lantern or something before your opponent finds something that's relevant.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it makes sense to blind Pixis in this situation, but I guess I figured that maybe the clock, or it'd be a little bit faster to mill them if I continue to Pixis.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I've already dealt with 3 of their Flages at this point, so like the odds that I hit another Flage are pretty low, but... So, I make a mistake in this situation, I think. I'm firing off this Inquisition that I drew to keep my hand empty, but I could dump it to the Fomori Vault and look for a land instead.
That's a good point, actually.
I'm pretty confident that my opponent isn't doing anything anymore. So I don't need to see their hand.
That's 5 looks at a land, which is a pretty high number of looks, actually.
Yeah.
And given the situation that you're in, it probably...
I either hit a land or a bauble.
Yeah, either a land or a bauble, that's true. And then next turn, you can spin Fomori Vault again, and you can try and dig for a Lantern.
Right.
And if none of those... like, I think you have plays here. I didn't really consider Fomori Vault for a land, but I think that's probably correct.
Yeah, and then even if I wanted to as well, I have 2 Shredders now. If I hit that 5th land, then I could just grab the Lantern from my graveyard. I could just pop a Shredder and get the Lantern back.
I mean, assuming that the draw for next turn is something that you don't need to spend mana on, but yes.
Yeah, that's true as well. Having 5 lands opens up new avenues to me. So they were holding on to a Bowmasters. I assume that maybe they were thinking, well, first off, it has Flash. They don't need to cast that right away. But, maybe it messes up my math with the Flages because I was at 10.
All right, so opponent is drawing blind. We are drawing blind.
Yeah, they're in clock conservation mode. Like, they either answer the bridge or they just pass. It doesn't really matter for them. What gets drawn? Another Inquisition. So this is another opportunity for me to vault.
And we do not see the line. That's okay.
Yeah, so they're just holding on to a swamp. I'm not really sure why they're holding on to their swamp, but...
So, oh, well, that's game.
Yeah, this is game. So I would be curious. I don't draw cards to see what's below. Yeah, these don't work, right? Yeah, these don't work. I would be curious to see, like, Fomori Vault would have dug us so far to
Yeah,
finding something
actually.
else, which, if we hit that 5th land, that would be incredibly important. Because I didn't think about this either, but if I hit a Pithing Needle to name Goblin Bombardments as well, like, even if I don't hit a Lantern off of those future Fomori Vaults, I can at least find pieces. I'm virtually guaranteed. What's the right phrasing?
Extraordinarily likely, highly likely.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily likely that I find something that I can use to forward my game plan in a way that makes me not lose. So I think this game was very winnable.
I think the game was winnable as well if you had leveraged the power of Fomori Vault. You know, I said in the beginning that I didn't think it was going to be fast enough, but then we found a little bit of a clever way to use it, and now it's looking a lot better.
Yeah.
Wasn't used in this game, but we'll try again next time.
Yeah, the one of the things I like about playing against Mardu is that they have more like graveyard resiliency, which can be annoying, but they tend to be slower because of that resiliency. Like sometimes they'll rely on a Thoughtseize based hand and just hope that they slow you down more than they slow down themselves by casting the Thoughtseize. So Lantern for the most part is pretty discard resilient. I've found like it sucks when they take a bridge, but if they take anything else, like you don't really care too much most of the time. So
I mean, I've won games where I've been grief scammed, and
yeah.
it's possible. It's hard to do, but it is possible.
Ba-ba-ba-ba. Okay. Match 1, game 2.
Wow, this is a good hand.
Seems nice to me.
That seems nice to me too.
Yeah.
You've got Stirrings to dig for bridge if you really needed to. You've got Inquisition into Brutality, which will really slow them down. And you have Urza's Saga to find pieces and maybe make a big boy. And Pithing Needle will pair quite nicely with the 2 discard spells. I think this is a snap keep.
Yeah. Against something like Pure Boros, I might be a little bit concerned about keeping the 7 just because it doesn't have a guaranteed way to answer the board state. Just because that's so important. But like versus most decks, I think this would be good against pretty much anything that you fielded against. Like this is an amazing game 1 hand.
Yeah, and since this is Mardu energy specifically, I'm more inclined to keep something that can go a little bit slower like this.
Yeah, yeah. So I do fetch a basic swamp here. So I think I'm banking on using the Stirrings later. I have other things that I'm going to be doing, and I don't want to take the 2 life.
You could trash it to Brutality.
Yes, I could also trash it to Brutality. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, this is what they kept. I think this is what made me want to analyze this match was this Thoughtseize or this turn 1 Inquisition. What do you take?
This is a very interesting situation, and this really could go one of 3 ways, I think. I don't think that taking the Orcish Bowmasters is even in consideration. Pithing Needle is completely dead in your hand. And since you did not fetch Shock, Stirrings cannot be used in the manner that it was looking to be used. So you really are trying to maximize this collective brutality as much as you possibly can. If you're going to be doing that, then you need to make sure that the collective brutality aligns as well as possible against what your opponent is doing. The problem is you cannot cast collective brutality if your opponent sees a perfect answer to the Harsh Mentor and decides that it needs to go.
Yes.
So I personally would ignore the Static Prison. I know that it looks scary, and it will probably need to be answered at some point, perhaps with Urza's Saga constructs. But I would take the Thoughtseize in this situation. The difference between you and I think, is that I also would have actually fetched Shocked. I want to have that Stirrings as a backup plan, and I don't mind taking the damage because I can just recoup that damage from Brutality later on if I need to.
I think in my head for the Ancient Stirrings, I was just planning on pitching it to Brutality anyways, just to get my hand empty. That must have been where my head was at. I wasn't thinking of my opponents as being a slower deck. I just saw them as being energy, and I just wanted to dump my hand. And
yeah,
so,
you saw red. Yeah, that's really easy to do, and I don't blame you for doing it.
I think Overgrown Tomb was could have been, or very well could have been the right decision though. So.
Because what Overgrown Tomb would have allowed you to do is it would have allowed you to on turn 3, actually on turn 2 even, Stirrings for something, because that Collective Brutality is not going to be cast on turn 2. It'll be cast on turn 3, because that's when they're going to be playing their Harsh Mentor.
Yeah.
So that'll free up your turn 2 for maybe Stirrings into Shredder, Stirrings into a Lantern, if that's what you find off of it. And then your turn 3, you can still maybe even discard a card with a Collective Brutality. So I think you just need to take the Thoughtseize now.
I think I agree with that assessment. So there's another factor here as well, which is that their mana is garbage. They have a swamp and an ether hub. So the Static Prison, they'll have 2 energy if they cast Static Prison. I mean, they run a lot of fetches, so the odds that they spin into a land that taps for white is pretty high. Well, relatively high. They still need to hit a land. But
they do still need to hit a land.
But taking the Thoughtseize and then having an answer to Harsh Mentor seems really nice, because they'll be stumbling over their mana for this game. I think I end up taking the Static Prison in this situation. Let's see. What do I take? I took Static Prison. I thought about it for a while, though.
Static Prison looks scary.
I took a look at my hand, and this was my decision, right? They're going super slow. If I hit a 3rd land, I could make constructs off of this Urza's Saga. I don't have a Lantern Lock in this hand right now. I'm not going to be getting pinged for much. So my thought was that if I contest the board state for a while, their mana is really bad. So if I just take the guaranteed removal out of their hand, then they won't be able to take away the constructs, and I should be able to keep them distracted for long enough. This does come with a big caveat that I don't have a 3rd land yet.
Yep. And
if I don't answer that Harsh Mentor into the mid game, because I assume they will take this Collective Brutality with the Thoughtseize, like you said. So I'm operating under the assumption that Harsh Mentor is could be sticking around as well, and that would be a problem. So this seems like such a weird Thoughtseize, like a weird decision. This is a very intricate.
I think that this is kind of a bit harder because you can't tap the swamp for green to find the 3rd land.
It would have been so much better if I did Overgrown Tomb. Yeah, after I did Inquisition, I'm like, oh, having green would be so nice, because finding that 3rd land is extremely important. But
yeah, that's okay. We're at the spot that we're at right now, and let's just go ahead and play with what we've got.
Yeah. But sorry, to encapsulate one more time, I think taking the Thoughtseize would have made the most sense. This seemed like an interesting line too, though. I don't know if this is worth exploring as well, but
okay. Honestly, if they play a Static Prison on an Urza's Construct token, that's cool, great, fantastic. That's one less thing to answer in the Snaring Bridge.
Yeah, that's true as well.
They're spending a card and resources on something that did not cost you a card to make.
Yeah. So they do Thoughtseize and take the Collective Brutality. We were expecting that. Saw it a mile away.
We were expecting it. So again, their turn 2 is going to be a hard. Oh, wow.
Thoughtseize fuck indeed. That made my life a little bit easier. I still need a 3rd land for this saga, but it's still a problem. So at this point, I think I'm just dumping my hand. Now, it does kind of suck to play this Needle out right now. I'm not even sure if that's entirely correct. Going down the Urza's Saga construct route, I do want this out right now, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be needling at the moment. So that's a problem. What would you needle if you had to blind needle on turn 2?
I don't know. Is Goblin Bombardment even played as a 4 of in this deck?
Not normally. It's normally like a 2 to 3 of.
Well, in that case, it's got to be Ajani. Ajani is just the scariest thing.
I think so. Yeah, it's the only 4 of in the deck with an activated ability that can grind you out over time, and can be an immediate board impact. So I think just in the blind, naming Ajani makes the most sense.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't feel great though, because like they run Ob Nixilis and they run Goblin Bombardment. Those are 2 other cards that cause a lot of problems. And we haven't seen the Chthonian Nightmare, but that can be a world of hurt as well. So
here we go, Harsh Mentor. Let's go.
Yep, opponent just runs out the Harsh Mentor. They have no energy. They have no way to produce energy. If they draw a Galvanic Discharge, they can't use it either.
That's hilarious. Well.
This I got mana problems.
You've got mana problems.
So the struggle is real. So I drain and remove the Harsh Mentor, discarding the Ancient Stirrings.
But I think that's fair, and I think
Yeah.
that not max escalating is okay.
Yeah, I want to be able to see their hand, because they're going to draw into mana eventually. I want to be able to at least pick whatever their best card is before they get to cast it. At least that's my thought. So now on the bright side here, even if I don't hit mana off of this saga, I can tutor a lantern, and I can try and maximize their mana problems.
Right.
It's not a great line, but it is a line.
But it is a line. And currently they have a black source and a colorless source. And you know, based off of the fact that they did not play a land last turn, that they do not have another land in hand, which means that it's entirely possible that that Orcish Bowmasters is the only play that they can make.
Right. So this game is going to be very awkward for them for the rest of time.
Yeah.
So I do grab the lantern. Do you think you would have grabbed the lantern at the situation, or?
100%. Yes.
Okay. It seemed like the fun play, and look at that. There's a land right on top.
I do think that this is one of those situations where mana denial is probably correct. Like, you can Thoughtseize them just to make sure. Oops. And did we see what they had in hand?
Sorry, I Guide of Souls, Flage, Johnny was the 3 cards.
Fantastic. So 3 things that they cannot cast, which is what we surmised would be the case.
What would you discard from this hand?
Probably the Guide of Souls.
That makes sense. Yeah, I Needle to Johnny and Flages. They need 2 colors to cast that, so they're quite a ways away from Flage. So yeah, I took the Guide of Souls. Perfect. Yep, and then I do mill this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is exactly what we want to see.
That's another card they can't play.
And it might even be correct here to fetch away that Pithing Needle just to try and find something. You're not under a ton of pressure right now.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to fetch a Tomb. And there's a Stirrings. Look at that.
Stirrings. Would you look at that?
Delicioso.
If that finds another Mill Rock, then you are in great shape. Hey, that's a Shredder. Okay, you're in great shape.
So it's a... Lander Shredder is a weird decision to have to make here. I guess if I'm clamping down on the yes, I would like to deny my opponent's mana for the rest of the time, then the Shredder is better. But if I draw something like a bridge, I would really like to have that extra land.
You will find that land eventually. Okay. You have what, like 6 draws until this Orcish Bowmasters is going to go coast to coast. This is a situation where I would 100% grab Shredder and double down on the mana denial plan.
Okay.
You can hold the bridge in hand for a while if you really need to.
So I seemingly did not agree with you. I took the Blooming Marsh. I can see either way. I'm not really sure which one of those is correct. Actually, oh right, because this is a YouTube video. What do you guys want to do here? Comment, yell at us.
Do it.
I'm not sure. Like I'm being too agreeable here, and I don't know what to pick. So I'm just going down the. It could be either one.
Hashtag like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. Oh right. Yeah. I never do that in my videos. I should do that. I should start doing that.
Do it one time. It helps me remember. Oh, hey, that's a static prison that they cannot cast.
Yeah, this is the weird thing too, though, because like the moment that this slips, I only have 1 Shredder because I committed to 1 Shredder. Do I let them keep the static prison and have them eventually have an answer to something later, or do I just take that now?
What do you mean eventually? They're never going to draw a 3rd land.
With 1 Shredder, they will. Eventually. If they just have 2 lands in a row. Like, I'm not popping my Lantern to continue to deny them mana.
I suppose that's fair.
However...
Pithing Needle.
I have a way to shut off some extra fetches.
On Arid Mesa.
Yeah, it's either Arid Mesa or Marsh Flats. I'm not sure which one. But
it's a shame that we did blind name with the... Yeah. Okay. Arid Mesa. It's going on Arid Mesa.
I'll help them. Why did I mill that? I didn't need to do that.
Yeah, don't mill that.
I mill. Yeah. All right. So this... Yeah, I named Marsh Flats on this. I should have just named Arid Mesa and let them keep drawing stuff.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that it's entirely possible that you didn't fully commit to the mana denial strategy. When you commit to mana denial, you must fully commit. Like here, I would even, I would go super duper aggressive. I would draw the Micahs and the Gardens, and I would use it to copy Codex Shredder.
Oh yeah, I mean the Codex Shredder's already tapped anyway. I'm not popping my Lantern to redraw, and I'm not tapping this on my upkeep. I just, all right. My opponent thought I was using their words against them. I did commit to the mana denial plan at this point. Like, I think I did that like
Okay.
1 or 2 turns ago. I'm just not super used to doing it. So
It's an extremely uncomfortable way of playing the deck.
it's also not normal.
It's not
Most
normal.
cases don't do this.
Yeah, this is like wearing a shirt inside out.
Are there practical reasons to wear your shirt inside out? There might be.
Because it's fun.
Oh, yes, that's a good reason. So my opponent gets to draw the Arena of Glory because that's not the important color of mana in Mardu. So they can have that.
Okay.
There's another Arid Mesa on top, though.
That's a little bit scary, but that's fair. That the Arena of Glory doesn't actually allow them to draw anything that you care about.
Yeah, that it did make me pause, but I mean the cost of that is sacking a Lantern, which I don't want to do.
Right.
And I didn't really have the I guess I had the Gardens at the time, but like they're gonna.
But you don't want to use Gardens on Lantern. You want to use Gardens on Shredder.
Yes, which I do manage to do, and they don't get that Arid Mesa. So. And we
but now that
on.
means that you cannot allow them to draw Galvanic Discharge.
Yes. Yeah, so that does turn on the discharges, but at the same time, like the odds that they hit a white tap source is much higher than hitting a Galvanic Discharge. So I'm happy with policing the energy production.
Yep, I think that's correct.
Okay, so I find a Deluge.
The Deluge, wow, okay.
So their clock is gone.
Oh, they're trying to cast. Oh no, they can't cast that.
Yeah, they're cooked.
They're cooked.
They're cooked.
Probably. Probably.
There's a bridge here.
Kind of the thing about the mana denial plan is that your opponent has what, like 15, 16 outs.
So
they've got a ton of outs.
Yes, but at the same time, I know that they don't have any permanent solution to an ensnaring bridge in hand because we've been seeing their top cards this whole time, right? Ajani is needled. I don't care about the Ajani they have in hand. Eventually, they'll be able to draw mana, but at this point, there's a bridge on top here now. I finally found the bridge. And at this point, I can just play normally. And they have no board state. They need to just get things out. And the only resource that they have plenty of right now is cards in Graveyard for Flage. But their mana is not good for that. So at this point, I can just switch to playing normally. And I'm fine.
Okay. See, I wouldn't switch to playing normally in this situation. I would continue to go on the mana denial strategy.
I can continue to do that, but if I see answers to bridge, I'm just going to mill over those as well. And if they slip through the lock mana-wise, then I'm not going to be upset.
I think that's fair.
So, yeah, I can try and do both things. But, or actually, I didn't even bother to mill the Godless Shrine.
I don't even think... I think the conversion is honestly probably correct. I really enjoy playing this deck in the mana denial strategy. It's just... It is just
very
an
funny.
absolutely wild ride.
All right, at this point, I think I can press play. I think we're good at this point.
You did let an Anthraptor slip through, which was a little bit scary, but...
So, I can see what's on the top of their library when they Anthraptor, right? So, that's my general philosophy. If they have a land on top, it gets complicated. But the odds that they hit something relevant off of Anthraptor on this board state is very low.
Fair enough.
Hello, N2O in post here. Game ends pretty unceremoniously. Opponent just made me deck them out. We kind of talk about nothing for a while, so I'm going to fast forward through all this and take you to game 3. Whee! This is the Keep 7.
Keep 7.
What do you think?
Yeah, looks good. Lantern Shredder, you've got Devil Discard, and you've got an Ancient Stirrings to help you find a bridge. I would actually lead off of an Inquisition on turn 1. And then turn 2, I would follow up with a Lantern and then maybe a Shredder if I see something important, and then a Thoughtseize. The issue with Mardu Energy is they can play things on turn 1 that are immediately impactful, like an Ocelot Pride. If they get that down, that's just going to go really wide really quickly, and this particular type of hand doesn't seem well equipped to handle something like that outside of it. Wait, you're on the draw.
Yeah.
It
does make a difference.
If they go turn 1 Thoughtseize, you're okay. If they go turn 1 Ocelot Pride, you're immediately on the back foot.
Yeah, like this hand looks like the nuts against most decks. I just don't know, like if do you keep this against Burn? Like, or even against like Burn or something, like this is tough just because even though it's 5 1-drops, So you should be able to dump your hand on turn 3. Like, you might not be able to get to bridge in time, and like your opponent still is going to be firing up a massive board state. So I'm not really sure what to do here. Oh, and I also need to get the Overgrown Tomb if this Ancient Stirrings is going to do anything. So that's another 2 life.
You don't even have the brutality to discard it this time.
It is really powerful, though, and it is really low to the ground. So
it's really powerful and really low to the ground. It just doesn't seem like it's necessarily aligned properly against what your opponent is doing. I do not think that it is correct to go to 6.
I think maybe my strategy versus Mardu and Boros Energy needs a bit of a retool, because I see these 7s, and these 7s look amazing against like 90% of the meta. But it doesn't have a bridge, and it has a lot of cards in hand. So even if I top deck a bridge, this is going to get complicated. So I don't really know if this is even something worth keeping, or something like this is probably good enough where you can keep 7. But there's a lot of times where I see a hand and I'm like, yes, it's 7 cards, but there's a lot of things that I can do with this that might get me to where I need to go. And especially against like pure Boros, where they're running the 4 Ragavans and they're just going as low to the ground as possible, I just die. Even though I have a lot of utility in hand, I'm finding awkward, like almost half the time I'm like, okay, I need to Thoughtseize myself on turn 3 to get cards out of my hand. And it's a terrible position to be in.
I mean, this hand will let you do that.
Yes, that is a line. Maybe that's something that I need to consider more in the future as well, that I can't just make myself discard for a bridge. But the fact that it doesn't already have bridge might be enough to just say I need to mulligan. So maybe I just need to be mulliganing more aggressively. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe not with this hand, but like with other hands, like they're slightly weaker. Like, oh yeah, we didn't go over the sideboarding decisions.
We did not go over the sideboarding decisions. Let's see what you brought in. You brought in all 3 brutalities, which I think is correct.
Yeah, all the brutalities.
You sided out Mishra's Bauble.
Generally speaking, Mishra's Baubles are filler. So if I have things that I want to bring in, first off, I don't need to enable Revolt on the Fatal Push. So the Baubles don't need to be there to enable that. But secondly, like they're nice on turn 1 and 2, but they're gonna put cards in my hand. This particular build that my opponent is running is a Bowmaster's list, so the baubles get even worse after turn 2.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the Bowmaster's kind of changed my mind on it.
Yeah, even though I can dump them for free, like I need to crack them most of the time because they're just dead cards in hand. I'm treating them basically as a mulligan. It's kind of like how if you play a combo deck, sometimes they'll post board, they will take out their extra cantrips. So they'll keep, like, in Modern, for example, they'll keep their 4 copies of Preordained, but they might pull out some Considers or Opts or Sleight of Hands or whatever their second slot is, if they're a more traditional blue-based combo deck. It's just because you need to fill your deck with some interaction, and that's just the least impactful thing you could do early.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this out and see what happens with this double discard hand. Worst case scenario here. Oh, that's best case, actually. That is best case scenario, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Worst case is turn 1 Ocelot Pride. That would just...
Yeah, that would make me very sad. Turn 1 Guided Souls would also be pretty bad, but it would at least be a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But yeah, they take a Shredder, which I think is the best position to be in. That is the card I care about the least. Actually, yeah, let's talk about it. So, hello, non-Lantern players. If you are watching this video, if you got this far, don't take the Shredder.
No.
This hand is pretty resilient to Thoughtseize. Or let's see what they had in their hand.
Thoughtseize bug.
So, 2 games in a row. Well,
let's just pretend the Thoughtseize bug didn't happen. Let's pretend that we drew literally nothing.
So,
skipped or dropped.
So this is their hand. So if you're running Thoughtseize into the Lantern player's hand in this situation, the thing that you're scared about the most, you're not scared about a lot, but Shredder does the least. Shredder does nothing on its own. Lantern of Insight at least can make somebody shuffle once. And there's only 4 Lanterns in the deck, there's 6 Mill Rocks. So you want to take the Lantern here, you might want to take the Stirrings, you might want to take the Thoughtseize or the Inquisition. I think Shredder's the only one that's off the table. But let's say they took the Lantern. Like, I'd have 2 Shredders. What am I doing with those 2 Shredders? Like, I'm not milling them. They have Flages. So, like, yeah, it wouldn't have done anything. It would be a dead draw.
It would just be dead.
Yeah.
So here, I'm not even sure. Well, actually, if I were Mardu, maybe I would have just taken a lantern. If I were on the Mardu side of the table, I
Mhm.
might have been tempted to take the Inquisition, actually. But
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
that would be correct. At least that would have allowed me to maintain more threats in my hand. So, for example, if you only had one discard spell here, then your opponent could play Amp Raptor, Goblin Bombardment, Graveyard Trespasser, maybe. They would have like 3 threats in hand. But now you're going to be able to Lantern Thoughtseize next turn. And you're going to have perfect information. And you will take the first best card now and the next best card later, which I'm assuming the first best card now is probably Goblin Bombardment. I don't know about that. Their hand's kind of slow. Maybe taking the Raptor.
So
I would take the Amped Raptor.
you take Raptor?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Guide of Souls or Raptor are the 2 options. These are the 2 most aggressive choices. So Amped Raptor is going to find a buddy in some capacity. Like they might have a bad hit like a Galvanic Discharge, but for the most part, they're probably going to be hitting a 2-drop that they can just slam on the table. Or a 1-drop. Like if this finds the Ocelot Pride or a Guide of Souls, that's terrifying. So that
Yeah.
over the Guide of Souls itself, you probably want to take the Amped Raptor. The Guide of Souls, if they have to play that next turn, it messes with their curve, and they're going to have to fetch a Surveil land. So it doesn't use their mana as efficiently, and slows them down more.
If they have Amped Raptor and Goblin Bombardment, that is a lot of damage very quickly. So one of the 2 has to go this turn. And then you could even, if they do make the mistake of playing the Guide of Souls, you could just clean up the Goblin Bombardment with the Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
But if you take Amped Raptor and they spend their turn 2 fetch shocking with that Marsh Flats and playing the Goblin Bombardment, that's a Goblin Bombardment that is not an active threat because it doesn't have any fuel to it. And then you can just
Yeah.
Lantern Thoughtseize and take their second most relevant card.
My thought was going to be that I leave the bombardment for a needle later because they don't have a board presence right now. They're going to need several turns in order to get that bombardment online before it becomes a problem.
I think that's correct. And you have that Stirrings in hand, which has a pretty decently high chance of finding either a needle directly or a Saga that can find a needle.
All right. Well, after all this discussion, I took Guide of Souls for some reason. So
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
I
They're
think,
probably going to play the Amped Raptor here.
yeah, they'll play Amped Raptor. Yeah, I don't know if I like taking the Guide of Souls after this discussion. Okay, opponent is going to slam bombardment on turn 2.
Whoa! What an incredible opportunity for you.
They must have valued the Goblin Bombardment highly enough where they said, you know what, I'm going to draw into creatures, but I'm not going to draw into the bombardment. And seeing their list from game 2, it looks like they might only be running 1 or 2 of these.
I see.
So maybe they just said, like, I need this to get through a bridge. So like I can kind of see where they're coming from, but yeah, this is so slow now. This gives me so much time. I draw more Thoughtseizes.
I mean, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Opponent has a Wear Tear on top, and I have a bridge on top.
Yeah, so I guess you kind of... What do they have at hand right now? They have Amped Raptor, Graveyard Trespasser, and an Unknown.
They have a land as well. All right, no, they played the Marsh Flash. You're right. They have an
Played
unknown.
the Marshals.
Yeah.
So they have the Wear Tear that they're going to be drawing. Wear Tear would actually kind of mess with you here. Even if they don't hit the Ensnaring Bridge, they could hit the Lantern. And that would essentially be the same as you shuffling right now. Or you could just play the Shredder, mill the Wear Tear, and hopefully not have to deal with anything.
Yeah, and then if the Amped Raptor can spin into something scary, then I could try and shuffle that away as well.
Mm-hmm.
The one concern that I have here is that this Ensnaring Bridge, I want to draw that, but I don't have a third land, so this is going to be just sandbagged for a while.
I think that's fine. Fortunately, the opponent is just top decking terribly.
So opponent spins into a Thoughtseize off their Amped Raptor, which I think I'm okay with.
Yeah, Thoughtseize is actually kind of helpful for you here.
They do take Stirrings, which means that it's going to be harder for me to find my land. But I have a Shredder for myself to go looking for stuff. This the Gardens is being a little awkward mana wise. It's Trespasser Bowmasters is their hand.
Uh-huh.
So
no, this is just really interesting because the Trespassers does actually represent more damage, doesn't it? So I guess you just take that.
So over time, this is kind of weird because the Bowmaster represents 2 bodies as well.
And you don't have an answer to the bombardment yet.
I don't have an answer to the bombardment yet. They ping me once, they can deal 2, and then they deal another 2 off the bombardment. And that's assuming that I hit a land soon. The Trespasser is going to deal 1 right away from the drain effect. They just exiled their own Guide of Souls in their graveyard, I think.
Mm.
And then it whacks in for 3 every turn, but it's much easier to answer to a bridge, or with a bridge, and then they can only sack it for 1 damage later. So I think, I don't know, like they're pretty similar, but the Trespasser's also a 3-drop, which taxes their mana more.
No, I see the argument for keeping Trespasser in their hand. Okay, I think I'm on board with Bowmasters.
Yeah, so Bowmasters is gone. It's weird seeing Graveyard Trespasser in Modern.
It is kind of strange.
It makes sense for Flage hate, but it's just weird. I wouldn't have expected that to be a Modern playable card. Okay, so they spend the Trespasser on my own Shredder, which...
That's not correct.
Yeah, I think they're expecting that I have some recursion, which old Lantern used to, so I don't knock him for it, but yeah, that's not important at all. I'm not going to be getting that back.
Do you just mill yourself here?
Yes, I mill myself here.
Yeah, you need that 3rd land pretty badly right now.
Yep, and there it is. Boom.
Okay.
And now I don't really care about creatures anymore. This Trespasser is going to get blanked to the Ensnaring Bridge, whereas Bowmasters would have fired him.
Needle.
Yeah, there's the needle from Bombardment too. So yeah, that's sometimes you just draw well and then you're good at Magic. That's great. So opponent did find the Ocelot Pride, so they're finally going to have a clock, but they can't swing in this turn, and it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, it's fine. They're actually not even gaining life at this point because they don't have the Guide of Souls.
So Needle's gonna name Bombardment.
Wow, maybe Guide of Souls. Maybe Guide of Souls secretly was actually the best take with that Inquisition.
Maybe. I mean, the Amped Raptor spun poorly, so that was a risk that I was taking there. But I mean, the Guide of Souls would have cracked in for more damage too, though, probably, because the Amped Raptor only got to swing like what, once. Guide of Souls would have been able to swing it again. They'd have extra energy, and they would have been able to pump it once too. So I'd probably be at like 8 life or so, 9 life. I think taking the Amped Raptor is safer just because the Amped Raptor can sneak in removal.
Yeah.
So I should have taken that, but it worked out. Worked out just fine.
It's not that big of a deal. And now you can, next turn, play your Lantern, copy Shredder with Gardens, and be good to go.
Yeah, so I got double, triple lock. I have a bridge.
Okay, you're good.
We're home free. Yeah, this is pretty cleaned up. I have 12 life too, so like...
Flage is not a problem.
The 1 Flage isn't going to be an issue. They have extra bombardments that they're drawing into. I'll just run it for another turn or 2 to make sure I didn't forget anything, but this should be it. Yeah, it's looking good.
It's looking good.
Lands and lands. And that concludes the match. There was a second match that we recorded together in the same session, but after seeing that the runtime here is at 58 minutes after it's chopped up, I think this is a good spot to leave it for now. There's a lot of information in this one best of 3. That's enough. It's enough for one video. If you do like this type of content, first off, let me know in the comments below. I'll be sure to get that second match published if people want to see this type of content. But also check out FatesealMTG. There's lots of good stuff in there, as mentioned in the intro. Go check them out. Without further ado, if you like the deck list that you see in this video, I will link the Mox field. It is out of date at this point. I couldn't help but tinker after the original league recordings, but if you go into the primer section of the deck, there should be a timestamp. It should be around like August 18th, 2024, I think. Find the date closest to that date. Just pull that list from there, copy paste it into your Mox field or your MTGO account or whatever. Should work just fine. If you want to see some other Lantern builds or some other decks that I have in the pipeline right now, then check out the Moxfield account. Link is in the description below as well. And if you need any other content that's not related to FatesealMTG or me, then if you look at my channel page, there is a list of other Lantern YouTubers, and there's also an extra dedicated section to some other non-Magic the Gathering related content. Okay, take care, everybody.